That's the start of it.
Good morning once again. Good day. Distinguished guests, Your Excellencies, panelists, partners joining us across Nigeria and beyond. I am Oludamimola Albert, and I am honored. I am delighted to serve as the moderator for this event, which is the Southwest Economic Outlook for 2026, which is convened by the Development Agenda for Western Nigeria, Dawn Commission. Today's conversation comes at a critical moment for our country in general and for our region in particular. Nigeria's economy is gradually emerging from a point of turbulence that point of turbulence into what is being described as fragile stability. These key macroeconomic and political reforms has helped restore a measure of confidence and recalibrate national fundamentals towards development, of course. However, stability at the macro level must now translate into real improvements in productivity, in jobs, in income, in welfare at the subnational level. This is where real development is going to come in, and that is why today's discourse is important. Today, we bring policymakers, we bring economists, development practitioners, and private sector leaders just to explore one central question, which is how can subnational governments in Southwest Nigeria convert fragile economic stability into inclusive growth, fiscal resilience, and competitive regional development. We look forward to insights, practical policy ideas, and clear pathways to actions that will strengthen and consolidate our economic future for the Southwest region. On behalf of Dawn Commission, I welcome you once again. And please, any question you have, you could write them down to ask in person, or you could drop whichever questions you have in the chat box. We made a section available for Q&A where all the questions you have will be fully addressed. Thank you so much for coming. So now I would like to invite the Director General of Dawn Commission. It is my distinct pleasure to invite Dr. Sheye Oyeleye to deliver his welcome address and set the tone for today's discourse. Good morning, Dr. Sheye.
Thank you. Good morning, Damilola. Good morning. Esteemed audience, Your Excellencies, Honorable Commissioners, and distinguished participants here, good morning and thank you for joining in. We, as I always say, we don't take it for granted. The fact that you are able to spare time to congregate here on a platform like this, and let's have a discussion on the outlook, economic outlook for our region in particular, going into 2026. And we shouldn't forget that 2026 is actually going to be a very interesting year, economic-wise. And I use the word interesting because largely it's also a political year, and we know what normally happens when politics is in the air vis-a-vis our economy. But so it's good to be on a strong footing, and also it's also very good to understand all the scenarios that might be playing out as we proceed in the year. So thank you for joining in. Distinguished guests, honorable commissioners and heads of MDAs, esteemed scholars and members of the academia, leaders of the private sector, civil society, and development partners, invited participants, I warmly welcome you all to the 2026 Southwest Nigeria Economic Outlook Discourse, convened by Dawn Commission. Now we are at a particular defining moment for the Nigerian economy. Over the past 2 years, the federal government has implemented a bouquet of macroeconomic and structural reforms, which, while difficult, have begun to restore confidence and recalibrate economic fundamentals. Today, Nigeria can be described as operating within a space of fragile stability, a space that presents both risks and opportunities. The critical question before us, however, is this: how do subnational governments translate this fragile stability into sustained productivity growth, fiscal resilience, and improved welfare outcomes for citizens, which is very important? So this question is especially pertinent for the Southwest region, which has historically been Nigeria's hub of innovation, enterprise, and economic leadership. It is against this backdrop that Dawn Commission has organized this discourse as a high-level policy dialogue to interrogate the evolving global and domestic economic environment, assess subnational policy responses, and identify practical pathways for strengthening competitiveness and inclusive growth across the Southwest region. The theme of today's discourse is 2026 Southwest Nigeria Outlook, Advancing Subnational Economic Competitiveness. The discourse will explore how national reforms can be effectively domesticated to strengthen state-level competitiveness and economic resilience. It will further assess how the region can leverage global and domestic dynamics in 2026, while hedging against their potential adverse impact on the economy. We are privileged today to have a distinguished lineup of experts and scholars drawn from governments and non-state institutions, academia, think tanks, and civil society organizations. Their diverse perspectives will enrich our discussions and deepen our understanding of subnational competitiveness from multiple angles. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Dawn Commission remains committed to fostering evidence-based policy dialogue and regional cooperation as a pathway to shared prosperity in Western Nigeria. We are confident that the insights generated from this discourse will support better decision-making and more resilient economic outcomes for our states and our people. Once again, I thank you for joining. I welcome you all and wish us productive, engaging, and solution-driven deliberations. Thank you once again, sirs. Good morning.
Dami, please unmute.
Sorry, please. Thank you very much, Dr. Sheye, for that insightful and forward-looking address, and for reminding us of the urgent need for coordinated subnational action in this evolving economic climate. Our next segment is the keynote address, and here the context will be set for today's discourse, and this will be done by Mr. Soji here at Dawn Commission. Good morning, Mr. Soji.
Good morning, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I will share my slides now. Can you see? Okay. Yes. Good morning, everyone, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. The 2026 Outlook Discourse. This is like an highlight of the Outlook, and the theme is the 2026 Southwest Nigeria Outlook, Advancing Subnational Economic Competitiveness. My name is Adesoji Faraibi from Economic Research and Research Desk. Thank you. So this is the what are we talking about today? The outline. We are reviewing the global economic outlook and the implication on the Southwest, Nigeria. We're looking at the Nigeria domestic economy and the implication on the Southwest. We are doing some analysis of the budget, 2026 budget analysis of the Southwest region. And we're also reviewing the state-specific budget analysis to look at how this will affect and impact the economy in 2026. Of course, the conclusion. Now, the global economic outlook, of course, from 2025, there are a lot of things that have really happened. The first has to do with, in no particular order, we talk about the Trump 2.1. Since the incoming of the second term of President Trump, this table has really been shaking. There have been a new turn in the global order. There have been aggressive protectionist and mass deportation, and also been a confrontational foreign policy and domestic policy under the American first. And this has really been going on. We also have the geopolitics also affecting the global space and going to determine how the 2026 is going to be. So we have the Russia-Ukraine war. We are really dragged for long, but it's hopeful that has been said that by February 2026, it's considered to be the next significant opportunity because of the potential fire talks. They also have some geopolitical stability in the EU, European Union, which will really also significantly affect the energy prices. Ukraine, of course, if the peace talk eventually holds, Ukraine will start rebuilding, and this will affect the construction sector and all that. So this is necessarily going to affect the global economy too. We also have the Africa Central Bank face trade-offs. We're going to feel a lot of trade-offs in 2026 because they have been tightening to anchor the inflation risk and suppress this growth. Rather to also accommodate risk or the important inflation, because the global growth has slowed down the 2025 and also expect to further slow down in 2026. So this also is expected to affect trade. Trade is also expected to decelerate. This might also affect the supply chain, some industrial policy. Now, of course, the President Trump trade tariffs and other restrictions, which other countries might also have some counterpart restrictions too. The lower middle income countries, they've also shown some resilience in the growth projection in terms of having above the global average. So we also believe that these countries are going to impact the global growth in the coming years. We also have the growing penchant for alternative to US dollar. There's a continued depreciation of and maybe diversification away from the US dollar, because other countries are also pursuing alternative currency arrangement to reduce dollar demand. We have the investment in artificial intelligence is going to really the ROI needs going to be very good for 2026. There's massive investment. It's redefining how business is being done, and it's impacting how value is being created. And of course, going to be deepening economic fragmentation and financial blocks. Of course, geopolitics is increasingly shaping payment system and developing banking and cross-border banking. And even in Nigeria, we have the likes of OP and Money Point. Central Bank is also increasing the regulation in terms of converting this to a main microfinance bank instead of unit microfinance bank. So these have various implications. And we also have Africa and Asia. We are also leveraging these dynamics to diversify the financial partnership. So what will be the effect of this on the this outlook on the Southwest economy. Of course, we are going to be in terms of capital inflows and external financing. We're going to be seeing some trade volumes and, of course, sector operation in terms of how export is to be done. We also have the Southwest. What will be other implications in terms of stimulating economic activities to be able to provide the right incentive to receive and make the region competitive, so that we can have a lot of capital inflow in form of whether the foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investment. Also, when we talk about that investment, also look at the Southwest region preparing this pathway to make sure that such investment are also channeled into critical sectors such as energy, power, transportation, infrastructure, and what have you. It's also important for Southwest region to diversify external sources of finance, so that to finance this budget deficit. In fact, that would be to be better to depend more on multilateral loans rather than Euro bonds because of the increasing cost of borrowing. Then, of course, in terms of the AI investment, it will also be good for the Southwest region to also prepare to be able to take advantage of the opportunities inherited in the AI investment. The macro for the Nigeria economy, the review of the macroeconomic environment in 2025. If you look at our GDP growth rate, of course, it was 2020. It was 3.98. This is about 3.11 percentage change from 2024. We also have this official exchange rate stabilizing, even the closing on the parallel market rate. Oil production in 2025, of course, was below the projected by 422 million barrel per day. Of course, foreign reserves surged up to $45 billion, while monetary policy rate was anchored around 27%. Of course, in terms of inflation, it simmered. We have about, after the recalibration, we have about 15.15%, which is about 56.47% different from the 2024 as at December year-on-year, as at December 2024. Of course, the food inflation also simmered about to 10.84% around December 2025. And of course, the PMS also stabilized in terms of, we have about 739 naira around December. And in terms of the budget analysis, we can see the budget, because in terms of volume, it has increased by 5.8% from 554.99 trillion in 2025 to about 558.18 trillion in 2026. And of course, this deficit also increased and about 78%, and capital expenditure increased manually by 9.1%. Of course, the recurrent expenditure debt increased by 12.1%, and debt servicing increased by 8.5%. Of course, in terms of the assumptions to finance this budget, because of course we have been having multiple budget implementation, particularly in 2025, and even for 2026, about 70% of capex have been carried, move forward to 2026, and it would also be good for this budget to be normalized, so that we can have a single cycle budget being implemented. So, what are the key assumptions for this budget, 2026 budget? Of course, the crude oil production about 1.84 million barrels per day. The crude oil price to be about, there are going to be a reduction because of geopolitics and other things that's going on. We have about 64.85 barrels per day, and the average dollar, of course, is going to stabilize around 1,400, while inflation is projected to also be 15%, and the GDP growth modeled about 4.68%. Of course, the key anchor that's going to drive this this budget or the economy 2026. Policy anchor, we have the FX market reforms. We have been stabilizing the FX market and the FX flow, and the PIA, which has been improving the fiscal conditions, and the Nigeria tax law now, which has also expected to boost the government revenue, and of course the banking recapitalization. In terms of the implication for the Southwest now of this budget, of course, we talk about aligning subnational budget spending with national priority sector so that there can be a lot of synergy. Then we also have the drive for fiscal sustainability so that there'll be less dependence on FARC, and there'll be a massive drive towards improved revenue generation. We also talk about strengthening regional security amid this shifting geopolitics, that is collaboration between US and security personnel to be able to fight insecurity. We also talk about tax reform, implementation of the subnational tax harmonization law so that it can also improve generation, the tax reform at the subnational level. We also have about job productivity drive and harnessing the investment potential in AI. Now we'll talk about the Southwest region itself. In terms of the volume, we have the budget of 2026. For the total Southwest, we have about 8.707 trillion. And for the capital expenditure, the total is about 4.54 trillion, while the current expenditure non-debt is about 3.11 trillion. But when we disaggregate the Southwest budget, remove the outlier, which is Lagos, because Lagos itself is about 51% of the total Southwest budget, while the Southwest budget itself is about 50% of the national budget. So we look at the budget analysis, the trend of fiscal space for the Southwest, how the Southwest have been performing over the years, and we can look at increase in this trajectory. The IGR, of course, have been increasing, while the FARC allocation itself have been increasing. But of course, we still have some fiscal fragility in terms of the total debt increasing very sporadically. So this really matters, and this has been the trend of fiscal space in the Southwest Nigeria. So for the outlook for the Southwest as a region, what are we talking about? We have about two states. We have off-cycle elections. We have about two states of Osun and Ekiti who are due for elections this year, and in July and in August. So this was, of course, affect the fiscal spending in this state. We also have President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which has approved the commercial exploration of oil in Ogun State. So this also affect the total regional economy. Also to talk about the industrial development, of course, in terms of the tech, a lot of these states also have to invest in this technology. Then to talk about even the Dangote refinery will be listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange in 2026. This will also affect the sectors, the region's economy. Of course, in terms of FARC, federal allocation, of course, to now, FARC to revenue ratio for Southwest is 34.8%. We have to, region must prioritize IGR by leveraging this implementation of the subnational tax harmonization law to be able to improve revenue generation. Of course, on security, because the need for the Amotekun, a lot of irregular movement, of course, from different parts of the country to the region. This, protecting the homeland is also very important. The other, also by strengthening Amotekun and also be able to work with other conventional security networks to be able to make, ensure that the region is safe for everyone. So in terms of the state-by-specific outlook, of course, we talk about the state, Ekiti state outlook. Of course, the total size of the budget is about 4.415 billion naira, 515 billion. Of course, for Ekiti State, recorded expenditure outweighs the capital expenditure, and this might be this might be justifiable perhaps because of the election cycle where the public spending will increase because of the general elections. Of course, the budget has been tagged the budget of impactful governance, focusing on key areas such as agriculture, infrastructure, and other, being able to complete the current ongoing project. And of course, people's welfare and fiscal sustainability. But the outlook for the state, of course, apart from the off-cycle elections, like I have said, there are going to be a lot of increase in political activities that might somehow perhaps be more than the governance way. Then, in terms of internal generated revenue, Ekiti State has also done well in this, one of the first subnational states to implement the subnational tax harmonization law in the Southwest region. So this is a kudos to them. We believe that this is expected to increase the IGR for the state. And of course, the key infrastructure project for the state is Ekiti Nonye Zone, the Ado-Ekiti flyover, the agro-allied cargo industry, and other the economic growth drivers will be leveraging the farm clusters, special agro industrial processing zones, and of course, affordable access to all. And of course, even the National Integrated Power Project, this at Isenyi Ekiti, these are supposed and expected to impact the economy of Ekiti State. We now go to Osun State. Of course, it's also an election state, like that has been said. We've got the budget for Osun State about 723 billion naira. Of course, with the emphasis on the capital expenditure, about 56% of the budget, which is the budget of economic transformation. And the key focus areas are fiscal responsibility, transparency, and completing all other ongoing projects. Also emphasize education, health, and other critical sectors. Of course, what are the outlook for the state? Is also the off-cycle session elections. Because of course, government spending, as we said, will also increase due to elections. This may also in fact have effect on the governance. But in terms of internal generated revenue, there's still a low IGR, and the state is yet to domesticate the subnational tax harmonization law. So also in terms of the local government allocation, this also affect of course once the loss of this that have been cleared, of course, that also matters. The local government allocation being released will also affect the economy of the state for 2026. In terms of infrastructure project, of course, the capital expenditure surpasses other with the focus on realization of projects in Osogbo, Ile-Ife, Ila, and Iwo. The other key sectors, as I said, is education and healthcare. Also, there's focus on technology with about $20 million zero AI investment in the region and other agro-industrialization and farm-to-market initiatives. To Lagos State, what is the outlook for Lagos State? Of course, Lagos State has the highest budget size, about 4.44 trillion naira, and also the state regarding the budget of shared prosperity prioritizes capital expenditure, which is total about 52% of the total budget size, and where recorded expenditure is about 2.052 trillion naira. Of course, the budget focuses on the theme plus agenda of Mr. Governor and the major outlook for the region. Now, of course, in terms of fiscal strategy, of course, increase capital expenditure, and the state targets about 3.12 trillion IGR projection for the year, with the growth projection about 4.3 to 7%. Of course, the tax reform, the state has also promised to implement the subnational tax harmonization law to be able to enhance the IGR. Of course, the major project that's going to influence the 2026 economy of the state, the Mile 2 transportation interchange, and Maryland and Kotun Egbeda interlink bridge, and also the Apapa Tinker port efficiency, which award of course about $1 billion port modernization program, and several others. And what about the key sectors? Of course, this Lagos State in conjunction, in addition to the theme agenda, which also focus on critical sectors, and they include the economic affairs, health, education, and environment. But of course, there are going to be also private influence, which has to do with the private sector influence about the Dangote refinery. And we go to Ogun State. Of course, the budget size next to Lagos about 1 point, it's only to the 1.6 1.69 trillion naira. Ogun State also prioritizes the capital expenditure above recorded expenditure, taking about 63% of the budget. Of course, the budget of sustainable legacy focuses on completing existing Ishaya, which is the major mantra of the government, which has to do with infrastructure, social welfare, education, youth empowerment, agricultural projects. And of course, the state targets about 500 billion in IGR production and a moderate growth rate of 4.1%. Of course, the state also needs to implement the Subnational Tax Harmonization Law to be able to also have a relative impact on the IGR. Of course, the major project has to do with Gateway International Airport, a lot of special agro-industrial projects this soon. Also, that talk about the state boasts of a lot of industry, about more than 3,500 and key industrial zones. So the key sectors that are going to dominate, of course, have a very critical impact on the economic of Ogun State. Of course, infrastructure dominating. We have education, health, and of course, the 50 years anniversary celebration of Ogun State in 2026 is also boost tourism and cultural enterprises. The Ondo State, and second to the last, Ondo State, of course, budget size of 524.410 billion naira, also prioritizes capital expenditure, taking to tone about 57.89%, and the budget of economic consolidation focus on critical areas which have to do with infrastructure, social welfare, education, economic stability, and the rest. And the outlook for the region, for Ondo State, also Ondo State target about 44.7 billion naira in IGR, while the growth rate of 4.0, but also has to implement the tax reform that starts of National Tax Administration Law to be able to also impact on the IGR. Of course, there are major projects and for the state that affect the economic activity. Has to do with Okearo, Idori, Ukitipitwa Road, and the Bokotoa Road, the agro-processing zone and value chain development, the Red Go project for palm oil expansion, and the support for about 20,000 hectares. And of course, the key sectors has to do with infrastructure, health, education, and health insurance. There's also focus on expanding the Orange Health Insurance scheme. And lastly but not the least, Oyo State outlook for the region. Of course, Oyo State is also one of the dominant forces in the region with the budget of 892 billion. We also focusing on capital expenditure. The budget of economic expansion focuses on expanding, moving from stabilization to growth, and focusing on increasing production. Also focus on human capital development, education, and health. Of course, improving job creation and sustainable livelihood. And for the outlook for Oyo State also target about 100 billion IGR projection for the year, and the growth rate of 4.2%. And also, the state should also implement the Subnational Tax Administration Law for it to also impact positively on the IGR. And the key project, of course, for your state and the Rashidi Large include the Rashidi Large Doja Circular Road, developing the Oluyole Free Trade Zones, and upgrading the Ladoke Akintola Airport, the dry port, the logistic hub, and the special agro-industrial processing zone, SAPZ, and the Seyi Makinde Innovation and Technology Hub. Of course, the key sectors for the state has to do with infrastructure, agriculture, technology and innovation. And also, importantly, in addition to Ogun State, Oyo State is also celebrating 58th years anniversary of its creation in 2026, and this is also expected to boost tourism and cultural enterprise. So these are the outlines for the outlook for the region for 2026. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Soji, for that keynote speech. You've clearly set today's agenda, and you've laid out the opportunities and the hard choices facing subnational governments in this new economic phase. Now we move to the panel session, which is the heart of today's discussion, where we will explore practical strategies for translating macroeconomic stability into tangible growth outcomes. I would like to hand over to my colleague, Motola Shufui, who would go over the citation of our panelists for today. Hi, Motola, are you there?
Okay, thank you very much, Dami. Thank you. Thank you very much for staying with us. At this point, we will be moving into this citation session of our distinguished panelists this morning. This session is an opportunity to recognize the contributions and also formally acknowledge the outstanding effort of our panelists to the development of economic development of Nigeria. First, with no other, we have Professor Moruf Ademola Adeleke. He is the Honorable Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning, Osun State. Professor Moruf Ademola Adeleke is a distinguished scholar, a trailblazing academic, and a seasoned public administrator who currently serves as the Honorable Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning in Osun State. His journey is a testament to the power of academic excellence and a deep-seated commitment to the service of humanity. Professor Adeleke's leadership is characterized by academic rigor, transparency, inclusivity, and educational clarity. His academic background underlines his methodical approach to planning and budgeting, while his public statement reflects a desire to demystify governance processes for citizens. His push for a participatory budgeting process and clarity in fiscal communication has been received positively, aligning with the state's broader goals of accountability and public center governance. And next on our panel list this morning is Dr. Olusegun Omisaki. He is the Chief Economist and Director of Research and Development, NESG. Dr. Olusegun Omisaki is a preeminent economist, policy strategist, and researcher who serves as the Chief Economist and Director of Research and Development at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG. He's a scholar, practitioner of international standing. Dr. Omishaki has spent over 2 decades at the intersection of macroeconomic modeling and national development, playing a pivotal role in shaping Nigeria's economic discourse. Before taking the helm of research at the NESG, Dr. Omishaki built a formidable reputation through his work with the West African Institute, WAI, and the Center for Econometric and Allied Research. His expertise in computable general equilibrium modeling has allowed him to provide critical insights into the impact of global shocks on the West African sub-region. Often consulting for prestigious bodies like the United Nations African Institute for Economic Development and Planning, UNIDEP, he also serves as the chief economist of NESG as the primary architect of the annual macroeconomic outlook, which is a document that serves as a vital compass for investors and policymakers alike. His research spanning energy economics, regional trade integration within ECOWAS, and financial sector development is widely published in top-tier international journals, reflecting his commitment to evidence-based governance. Dr. Omishaki is more than a researcher. He is a strategic navigator dedicated to transitioning Nigeria from economic stabilization to long-term prosperity. His work continues to bridge the gap between the private sector and government, ensuring that Nigeria's path towards growth is paved with data-driven insight and sustainable policy frameworks. Next on our panel list is Mr. Seun Onigbide. He is the Global Director of Budget. Seun Onigbide is a pioneering entrepreneur, open data advocate, and the Global Director of Budget. He is an award-winning civic organization. Budget is an award-winning civic organization he co-founded to simplify the Nigerian budget and public data. A transformative figure in the space of fiscal transparency is Mr. Seun Onigbide. Seun Onigbide has revolutionized how citizens engage with government spending, moving the conversation from dense spreadsheets to accessible high-impact visuals. Since 2011, he has worked to strengthen fiscal transparency in Nigeria, building a reputation for public sector efficiency. His organization has reached over 12 million Nigerians and has also support over 45 civil society organizations and public institutions such as NEITI, National Assembly, Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, and the Kaduna State Government. Oluseun is a recipient of over 10 international awards. And last but not the least on our panel list this morning is Professor Abiodun Folawewo. He is the Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Management Science, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. He is an eminent economist, a seasoned researcher, a visionary academic leader, currently serving as the Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Management Science at the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. With a career spanning over 2 decades, Professor Folawewo has established himself as a leading authority in labor economics, macroeconomics, and development policy within the African context. Beyond the classroom, Professor Folawewo is a highly sought-after consultant and policy analyst. He has collaborated with numerous national and international organizations, providing data-driven insights on employment dynamics, poverty reduction, and macroeconomic stability. His extensive body of work published in reputable global journals explores the intricate link between labor markets and economic growth, offering practical solutions for sustainable development in emerging economies. His research areas are macroeconomic policy, labor market issues, institutional economics, and monetary policy. With a robust portfolio of published research, Professor Folawewo contributes to academic discourse through his work on institutional framework and academic development. His research has extensively analyzed macroeconomic determinants of unemployment, interest rate spread, and monetary policy in Nigeria and the West Africa region. To this end, please help me make welcome all of our panelists this morning. And at this point, I'll be handing over to Dr. Soji to take us further into the panelist section. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Adetola, and welcome everyone. Once again, I want to welcome all of us, all our panelists. Want to welcome us, and so you're not going to be. So I'm going to just be calling on our panelists. So I'm going to start with. So we are welcome to the panel session where we're able to dig deep into the economic outlook for the region, and they're going to be providing insights from different perspectives on how the outlook looks for the region based on the budget analysis and the highlights have been presented. So I want to start with key governance actor, which has to do with Professor Maruf Ademola Adeleke. He's the Honorable Commissioner of Budget and Economic Planning in Osun State. Honorable Commissioner, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Faraibi. It's my pleasure to be here.
Sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. So you're welcome. Let me also welcome another person. It has to do with Professor Abiodun Folawewo, the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Management Sciences, University of Ibadan. We're happy to receive you, sir. Prof, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Again, we also now have Mr. Seun Onigbide, the Global Director of Budget. Mr. Seun, we are happy to have you. Thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure being here, Mr. Faraibi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we also have Dr. Olusegun Mishakin, the Chief Economics and the Director of Research, NESG. Dr. Mishakin, good morning, sir. Okay, so in no particular order, I would like to start with the Honorable Commissioner for Budget and Planning, that's Professor Maruf Ademola Adeleke. Prof, you're welcome, sir. So I want to ask, based on the analysis we have done, most of the national budget remain heavily tilted towards recurrent expenditure. How can states reallocate scarce resources towards growth drivers such as infrastructure, human capital development, and value chain development despite the fiscal space? I know you are the Amos Affairs and you have done that for more than 3 years now. So please, can you go ahead and share this with us? Thank you, sir.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Adesoji Faraibi. It's my pleasure again to be here this morning. Let me recognize everyone that is on this call this morning, particularly my colleagues. From the list of participants, I can say that the Honorable Commissioner for Economic Planning, Ogun State, is on this call. And I guess my colleague from Ondo State is also here. My colleague, Professor, who's also on the panel from University of Ibadan, my pleasure to recognize you and to be here. Every other participant is recognized. Well, the question, I like to start by saying that recurrent is a necessity. Recurrent expenditure is a necessity. Even though we like to say that a budget that will actually serve the people the way it should have the bulk of its provisions in the capital expenditure, but that does not, again, say that we should overlook recurrent. As a matter of fact, recurrent expenditure is necessary for institutions to run, so MDAs to run. However, the question we would be asking is, what is the quality, what is the efficiency of the recurrent expenditure that is provided? And so a budget that is well crafted, no matter how big the recurrent expenditure is, an effective question would be, what is the essence of the recurrent expenditure that is provided? As we all know, some recurrent expenditures are even needed to run, the capital expenditure that is provided. So we'll be saying that why looking at how big capital expenditure is, we must also not forget to ask the question, how effective, how efficient is the recurrent expenditure that has been provided? So, for instance, in Osun State, we've always been, particular about how do the good people of the state that put this government in place benefit from the budget that is provided. Before now, in 2023, our capital expenditure was close to 50%. In 2025, it was also very close to 50%. But this year is about, just from what you presented, Mr. Faraibi, it's about 50%. It's about 56 point something percent. So in essence, we will do well by looking at how much of capital expenditure is provided. But at the same time, we must also look at the recurrent expenditure that is provided. What is the quality? What is the efficiency? If you look at recurrent expenditure in totality, when it is not disaggregated, we know that it has a component of personnel. And so when you have a state that has high population of civil servants, of course, we will expect such, the recurrent expenditure of such a state to be a bit high. But again, to address the question, states should begin to look at, benefiting from PPP arrangements so that we'll be able to provide what is essentially needed by the people of the state that puts the government in place. We must also be working towards benefiting from, development partnerships. These are areas, because we cannot have resources that will be so sufficient to take care of the current needs, and of course have so much resources to take care of the capital needs. So these are areas we should begin to look at: PPP arrangement, development partners, collaboration, so that we can deliver infrastructure and human capital investment that is, needed by the people of the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, Honorable Commissioner. And it has been succinctly said, of course, like you said, the budget structure is depends on the state-specific characteristics, that is the structure of the state itself. And this will also be able to define the way the budget is structured. Thank you. I will come back to you. But also let me, it's an oversight. The reason why I didn't call other commissioners, because I believe that all the other commissioners, honorary commissioner from Budget and Planning, Lagos, Oyo, Ekiti, Ogun, and Ondo, we have a special session. So that's why we're going to be properly recognized. So, but we want to welcome you, all the honorable commissioners, sir. You are all welcome to this call. So immediately after this panel session, we're going to receive perspective from all our states, because since Drone Commission covers all the Southwest state. So I want to go to, thank you, sir. So I want to go to Professor Abiodun Folaiwo. Prof, sir. Yeah, well, the focus of this talk is about how to increase advanced subnational economic competitiveness. What do you think are the major barriers to this state competitiveness in Nigeria, and how can the states become more competitive given their current fiscal and macroeconomic conditions? Prof, sir.
Thank you again, Mr. Farayibi, for having me. I think it's a pleasure to be on this call. And I also want to recognize the honorable commissioners that are on the call, and then the DG of Drone Commission. Thank you all. Well, since we are looking at the budget, and we are talking about how to make the Southwest region competitive, well, I'm happy that commissioners of budget and planning are here. Let me quickly say this. Budget is a statement of intention. We all need to know that, because yes, it is an aspiration. You may be able to get there and you may not be able to get there. Depends on several parameters. But again, when you talk of budget, we need to, before you can say maybe your budget will take you to that level of productivity you want, or you want your budget to be able to take you to have a certain impact which you envisage on your economic and put together the Southwest, we need to critically evaluate the performance of the budget in the past. Now, what do I mean by performance of the budget? Now, budget has different levels. You have the budgeted, you have the released. In most cases, what we have seen over is that statements are made about budget. Yes, they are always inspirational, they are always good, laudable, but then when it comes to implementation, that is where you have issues. I would have loved a situation in your presentation, maybe you would have helped us to highlight what has been the budget performance across these states over time. I'm working closely with Oyo State government. As of September last year, the budget performance was not up to 70%. Not up to 70%. You see a situation whereby the recurrent expenditure was performing as high as 80% and the rest. But what happened to capital expenditure? Now, so for us to actually measure whether the budget is going to have an effect or not, it depends on its performance. Now, all these things have presented their budget. We have seen the overall basket within the region. We are looking at about 8.7 trillion. Okay, now, how do we use this to boost competitiveness across the region? I am happy that for all the states, they have capital overweighing the current, except for one state. Now, well, of course, that is understandable why you have that in that state. But then we also need to question the capital expenditure. Where does it go to? What sort of infrastructure are we investing in? Because your output, your product, not to talk of productivity, is a function of what goes into the production process, which is the input. Now, just this morning, we heard about the second collapse in the national grid, the second in the year. Now, I'm not sure, maybe it's in the plan of the southwestern states, that this infrastructure, are we investing in critical infrastructure? Yes, I know a lot of them are doing a lot in terms of transport and the rest. What of energy? How do we invest in this critical sector? Because everything we do is it will be depending on what you put in. So I want to see the Southwest government harnessing their resources, even if it is beyond their budget, they can go out for partnership, invest massively in electricity, power generation, so that this will boost industry production across all sectors, and that it is then that we can talk of have the budget having impact on productivity. This is just my quick take. I think I can come back later to talk to elaborate on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. And you have really nailed it on the face, particularly in terms of this critical analysis. They are not just about the budget release itself, but about the budget performance. And I think it's in the bigger the report that we're writing. Perhaps I did not put it in this short presentation. So it's so thank you. But particularly, also mentioned about the focus of the capital expenditure itself, whether it's targeting appropriately targeted at physical critical infrastructure. So thank you so much. Now I want to go to Mr. Sheon Onibide. I know that budget has been doing a lot in terms of subnational fiscal policy, particularly as regards the state of states and the state fiscal league. So also we do in terms of transparency. So I would like to ask Mr. Sheon that transparency at the subnational level has relatively improved, but service delivery space gaps still persist. So despite the improved budget transparency across many states, why do we still see weak links between public spending and development outcomes at subnational levels? Please, over to you now.
All right, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here, and thanks for the honor of inviting me to be here. I would say that the one we have first answer is that what's the premise of our budget? Is our budget geared towards political expediency, or is it tied towards developmental objectives? You know, when we see the budget, everybody is always quick to look at the numbers and say recurrent capital. And I also like the response from the commissioner about the fact that capital projects even have recurrent costs. You know, build a school, you need to put teachers there. You build an hospital, you need to put doctors there. And that's why even working on that dichotomy might be a bit challenging. But because that's why it's good that you take a budget and look at it from a planning perspective first. The budget is not just a joint document with numbers and say recurrent capital debt service. No, it should be, this is our guide for planning, not just of the now, but for like a short term, medium term, and long term. But what you see most times in the budget is that it's become a tool for political expediency. Maybe what does the governor like to see? What does the maybe a commissioner like to see? What does the community like to see? So we are mostly governed by this level of short-termism, and sometimes we're also not even evening out opportunities within the states. Sometimes there's even over concentration, if there's a word like that, on the state capital. So you begin to see that development is not happening on an even basis. So I guess that's why you see that our service delivery is weak. For example, if you are a governor of a state and you budget maybe 50 billion naira for roads, but maybe 60 to 70% of the roads are tied in the state capital, there's no way development is going to get everywhere. Or maybe it's tied to because of like the votes come from this region, and that's where the numbers are going to come for you for your re-election. Whereas you forget that maybe the people that need most of the road is to open up the farms and to open up and to ensure that agro produce is able to move quickly to to the cities, you begin to, those are like, you are not being strategic. So the first reason why our budget don't translate to service delivery is that there's a high level of politicization. And second, our fact is that our budget is not tied to planning. It's much more like spending. I mean, in budgets, we call it like, it's like a contract vending machine. We are just like, this is the budget. We get to contract, we want to execute, and we want to deliver. The other part is also that we've also not built a strong evaluation mechanism, like what I would call an outcome evaluation mechanisms for our budget. For example, you will see like, I want to build a school. To what end are you building a school? Is it to increase the level of numeracy? Is it to increase the level of literacy? We want to put an hospital in this place. To what end? Or we have put doctors there, we've put nurses there, but to what end? Are you reducing maternal mortality, infant mortality? Are you raising immunization? Is there a way we have built a holistic evaluation mechanism for our budget? We're able to say, okay, this is the end goal for our budget, not just the fact that we want to deliver a contract and we want to build things. And I guess that's why you see that citizens can even reflect to say, this is the most important element in that one. And it's just because a lot of the work is not guided by evidence and not guided by data. So if we're able to do more work around streamlining the budget to be a planning tool, and we depoliticize as much as possible so that we put it in the faces of short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And we now do the third element of it, which is the making sure that we build the outcome evaluations right. I will give you an example. In Oyo State, there's a road between Isheyin and Osogbo, a 76-kilometer road that was built by the current governor, Seyi Makinde. And anytime I pass through that road, because I'm from Ogbomoso, I respect the fact that they're thinking behind that kind of work, because it's not because anything is happening in that corridor, but you're opening up a massive corridor for agriculture, for mining, for different things, for industry. And that's what you have to do. And those things might not germinate now. People that did Lekki Free Trade Zone when the current president was there, those benefits did not germinate or did not ripen in 5-10 years. It's now you begin to hear Dangote refinery. So states also have to look at the budget from that perspective. It's not just about all like building, trees, building small shoots. It's about also planting trees that even they might grow into things that you might not fully reap from it, but you have built things that generations will look back critically, holistically, and say, yes, you play a strong part in making sure that these states become much a stronger, sustainable vehicle. I will just stop at that point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sheung, for that intervention. And just like you have said, budget, the premise of budget really matters in terms of using budget itself as a planning tool and just making it beyond numbers, and also focusing on the outcomes evaluation mechanism so that those will not just be numbers. Thank you so much. I'll still come back to you. Let me go over to the Honorable Commissioner, Professor Adeleke now. Honorable Commissioner, sir. So I want to ask.
Yes, I'm with you.
All right, thank you, sir. So I want to ask, I know that, of course, we know that states have different capacities in terms of institutional capacity, in terms of deliverables. So can you share your experience in budget implementation in the past years, and what are the lessons that can also enhance the implementation in 2026, this budget, based on all these things that we are talking about? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Faraibi. Budget implementation does not stand alone. It starts from when you started your planning. A budget that is not well planned, of course, will fail implementation test, because that would just amount to spending money the way you think money should be spent, not really basing it on what is it that we want to achieve. And I want to take from what Mr. Onigbide just spoke about in terms of what is the intention of the government in the budget that is planned. Are you just competing with other states to ensure that the size of my budget is not smaller than that of other states? And so I'm also seen to be a state that is rolling out big figures. And am I doing what I'm doing for political reasons? From Osun experience, we take our budget planning process as seriously as possible. Let me say that we are running a long-term development plan of 2023 to 2050. And in the plan, the state has been disaggregated into 16 sectors. Each sector having some MDAs that have similar, mandates, put together under each sector. And each sector is assigned a sector manager who oversees how, planning process is run in each sector. And the process of arriving at our budget in the state is a well-calculated, process. Around the beginning of the planning process, we go through what we call the development of medium-term sector strategy, deliberately, not just a process for the sake of, going through it. What we do is to review what has happened in the past year, look at what we plan to do, look at what we're able to do, look at those ones that we're not able to do, and then try to understand the reasons why those things, didn't go the way we planned that they will go. It is at this level that sectors come up with, projects, programs that they think, will serve the good people of the state, arising from the state development plan that we are working with. And projects, programs that are not thoroughly debated and identified as being priorities will not find their ways into the budget eventually when the budget is, being crafted. And this also is linked with the needs of the citizens through the Citizens Consultative Forum, Citizens Needs Assessment. And when MDAs come up with their figures, they are thoroughly debated. There are about 3 levels of budget presentation that we do before our budget becomes appropriation. That's what we call the pre-treasury, board meeting, where MDAs will come to, present what they have, crafted as their estimates for the coming year, which will be thoroughly debated. Accounting officers would come, present, and then try to x-ray why those things have been identified and what they think they will do for the state. After which, at that level, it is the Ministry of Economic Planning that oversees, and that pre-treasury committee is chaired by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Economic Planning. After which, it goes to the next level of Treasury Board meeting that is chaired by Mr. Governor himself. Made up of the board is made up of the political heads of all the MDAs, where what has been agreed upon at the pre-treasury will again be presented and be scrutinized before the Executive Council of the state will look at what has been put together before it goes to the House of Assembly, where MDAs again would appear to defend what has been put together. So it is this plan that has been deliberately put together that will now be subjected to implementation. And so you will see that when you have a very good plan, a plan that is deliberate, you would have no other choice other than to follow that in terms of implementation. And in the state, we are not just concerned about the figures that we have in our budget. We are concerned about how well it is implemented in terms of what implementation success are we able to record. In the state, we have given ourselves a benchmark of having an implementation performance of not less than 85% to ensure that the figures that are put together are actually utilized the way they've been crafted. It was just in 2025, this immediate past year, that we were not able to achieve that threshold of 85%. Because of the obvious challenge that we have, the local government issues and all of that. But even at that, we were still able to record not less than 82-point-something% of our performance. So in essence, what I'm saying is that budget performance, budget implementation depends on the planning that went into the budget that you're implementing. So if your budget is not well planned, there is no way you have effective, efficient implementation that will actually deliver the good that you aspire to deliver for the state. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Honorable Commissioner. I know that, like you have said, budget implementation of budget across the states, I know they pass through different processes. And not to repeat what you have said, practically, I know Don Commission work with a lot of Ministry of Budget and Planning. I know about, of course, attended both the Citizens Needs Assessment and the Stakeholders Consultative Forum on Budget. I know for your state, or part whereby they call before any of those things have been done. So I know that we can attest to that for our states. And of course, the budget not just being numbers, it also matters. Thank you for your intervention. Thanks so much. So I will go again one more time to Professor Folayowo. Prof, sir, I know that global dynamics now, which you talked about, might think that we are subnational, we are not exposed to this, but what do you think, sir, the impact of these global dynamics, maybe price, commodity prices, and on this on the subnational economies, and what are how can this impact be mitigated? Because in terms of budget implementation, there are a lot of states with budget deficit are going to be sourcing external funding. So what are the probable impacts of this global dynamics on the subnational economy? Over to you, sir, Prof.
Thank you once again, Mr. Farayibi. Let me say that even though we are looking at subnational budget performance or subnational economy, no state or no nation is immune from whatever happens elsewhere in the world. Of course, the world is a global village, and there's what we call contagious effects across economies. So even if anything happens in the global oil market, it's going to have ripple down effect on our local economy. And of course, if anything happens in the world oil market, it's going to affect the FGN projected budget and the fundamentals, of course, when the assumptions underlying the budget. And if that happens, it's going to affect the FAC allocation coming down to the states. So again, when I like the background you gave about the Ukraine-Russia war, and of course, you see a lot of trade war going on between US and other countries, China, Canada, and the rest. And of course, it's been extended to European countries. So all these things, they are likely to have effect on the national economy, which we, again, affect the subnational economic performance. But yeah, there are always ways out of any issue. One of the ways I think we can hedge around global risk at the subnational level is I look at this, one of the slides that you presented. I look at, there's over time, high GR of southwestern states have been, has been increasing. But then, as it has been increasing, the debt profile has also been increasing. So I would say that the states within the region, we need to do more in terms of their internally generated revenue, so that you see, you don't rely much on the debt and you don't rely much on FAC. And I think Lagos State is doing a lot. It's doing tremendously well in this area. And of course, again, Oyo State has been coming up in terms of its internally generated revenue. So the only way we can be immune against all whatever is going to happen in the course of the year at national, at international level, is for the states or the region to ensure that more emphasis is laid on their internally generated revenue, because it will give you a buffer that at least, even if it will build your resiliency. So that is what I will say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Prof, for that intervention. I think just like your last statement said, the Subnational needs to build their resilience so that they'll be able to withstand some of the global shocks, both from the national and the global space. Thank you so much for your thought. I want to go straight again to Mr. Shem. Thank you for waiting and thank you for your attention. So I want to ask, I want to ask this question in two. I know that you have even said some about it. So I want to combine the two questions. Say from your engagement, what are some of the weaknesses that exist in the budgeting process of Subnational? I think you made mention of it. Then if you can also combine it to how can the citizens and civil society be more strategically positioned to engage this budgeting process so that it will not just be post-budget advocacy alone. Yeah. So please help us provide the answer. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. And I like your first question, and I will reiterate again. I mean, budget in the last 10 years, I've been issuing the State of States report. So we have been a keen observer of the state finances and the trajectory that we have seen over the years. And one thing I'm always advising states, I mean, for the few people that ask for my advice, is that you must build what I call engines of growth to be able to improve your budgeting process. And there are a few examples for us in Southwest. Some of them are natural and some of them were engineered. The natural ones will feel like an Ogun State, for example, the proximity to Lagos corridor. Like Ogun State has at least 6 corridors with Lagos, like I would call them maybe industrial corridors, the Jebu corridor, the Agbara corridor, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway corridor, the Otasangu corridor, and it's also the Ota corridor. I mean, there is an opportunity there to be that's allowed to build like an industrial opportunity out of that, and you could see how apart from Lagos, Ogun State has the second highest IGR in the region. Lagos also has some natural inherent advantages, which is also that the fact that you have been the country's commercial capital, and you have the largest agglomeration of commercial institutions across the country. So it's easy. Your payee would definitely be huge. And that's one advice I'm always giving to states about fiscal sustainability budgeting, because at the end of the day, you need resources to finance the budget. If you want to be able to do that, you must ask yourself that, how did you attract more formal businesses? How do you formalize more businesses? How do you incentivize the formalization of businesses within your state? Because that's what's going to help you generate much more improved returns or much more improved earnings from the state. The second thing is also, how do you attract talent? A lot of them are also always try to attract, we want to attract a federal institution for payee. But I'm always saying that that's not just the only way to do it, because that is also a bit limiting in itself. How do you attract industries within the state? How do you also, and the last point is also the Lagos market. If that we like it or not, the Lagos is around 30% of Nigeria's entire market. And the proximity to Lagos is within the Southwest. So I'm always advising states also that when you are developing strategy and plan, you must have, what is your Lagos strategy? How are you going to service that market? Agricultural wise, how are you going to service that market? Consumer wise, how are you going to service that market? Because it's also very important that states understand that if you look like in the US, you have like New York and New Jersey. You have like, okay, New York, Jersey exists because New York's exist. And that's how we also have to start rethinking and patterning our ideas, because that's when we now generate enough value from the collective as Southwest. We have Lagos there. We need to be able to tap into the consumer market that is happening within that space. And my final point is also now think much more long term. In Southwest today, I believe that, and that's why sometimes I like what is happening within Osun, maybe with the Segilola gold projects. I like what's happening within Oyo, with maybe the Rashid Adewolu GREs and all of that. But we also have to build spaces. And think of it not just in the primary cities, but secondary cities. What happens to an Elisha? What happens to an Ife? What happens to Ogbomoso, what happens to Inyekiti, what happens to Ekpe, Badagry, the places that are not the primary focus, because it's only then we can generate growth that can be much more even space. So I wanted to touch down on the fact that fiscal sustainability is also critical into the budget, and it's not just something we do in a year. Because when people talk, oh, Lagos State has done this, that, yes, it has its own natural advantages, but also there were things that were systematically built over the years, and something that we're seeing also with Ogun State. And you will see that there's a bit of intention with Ogun State to continuously be the industrial capital of this country. And compared to advantages that some states like Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers that had energy, that have energy proximity to them, they're not taking those advantages of those things as they should. We're seeing Ogun State at pipe gas all the way down and is taking those advantages. And that's what exactly we want to see more states. And that's where Oyo State building a gas pipeline is extremely important, because that's how you continuously build a much more industrial outlet with a cheaper energy. My final point is about what do we do about the budget to be much more engaging. The reality is just that democracy must prioritize two things. It must prioritize accountability, and it must prioritize inclusion. Every other system of government can deliver everything else, but it might not deliver those two things: inclusion and accountability, especially inclusion. Because even you could say in China, people will say if you steal money in China, they behead you. I've heard things like that, or you get missing, which means there's a form of accountability, even though it's not like your straitjacket democracy. But inclusion might be a problem, because you cannot go and raise your hand and say, hey, Chinese Premier, I think my local community needs to be part of this. Whatever you're handed out to is whatever you get. So what I'm saying is that democracies must be founded on inclusivity. And that's why addressing and hearing from citizens is also very critically important. I'm happy that states now do this geopolitical movement around for the budget. It's important, but we also have to see those interactions, like a statement. What did we get from those interactions publicly? How is that influencing how we propose budget that we are sharing with the State House of Assembly? Because it's also very important that state people see that all of this is not just a jamboree. It is a deliberate, dedicated opportunity to harness citizen feedback on the budget. The further thing is also to give them feedback on things. Sometimes I've seen certain roads maybe go 3, 4, 5 years. And you begin to wonder, the citizens are complaining and complaining about these things. And you see that some places, maybe within the urban metropolis, you see them retiring a single road almost 3, 4, 5 times. You also want to make sure that the feedback that citizens are giving, you're able to give this is my stewardship, or the basis of all the feedback that we get. But it's not as if we are not having this event, but if we are not articulating the feedback from it and also giving stewardship at the end of the day, it just feels much more like a jamboree, or maybe just like a box ticking exercise. My final point is about the budget, being a tool to engage on transparency. And recently, when we started budget, only 3 states were publishing their budgets online. Only 3. And I think we drove that advocacy to when we had 13 states now publish their budgets online. Until when we now had CIFTAS with the World Bank now incentivizing states to do so, and now I think have SEPA and all of those things. My question is that we have to also institutionalize this, that providing data, information to citizens, it's not like you're doing them a favor. It is their constitutional right. The people have a right to know. They have the right to understand and to know how their public resources are being spent. Because being in public office is like people hand over you a key to a door. The door still belongs to the people. The key belongs to the people. They can withdraw the key at any particular time, when they feel like it is right for them to change the key and hand it over to someone else. So they must, how you use the key, they must be carried along in the whole process. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Zin, for that wonderful intervention, and has really given us some background into how subnationals can actually increase their accountability, transparency, and inclusion, particularly in terms of their budget, and how to focus on what really matters. Thank you so much. So I'll still come back to you for your final thoughts. Thank you, sir. So before I call on our panelists for final thought, I know that other honorable commissioners are here. So I would like their perspective, that's perspective from the states now, So I don't know, Honorable Commissioner. So is in no particular order. I think Honorable Commissioner from Ogun State, Mr. Olabintan. I don't know if he can speak now. Is in no particular order. Just based on what I can see. Please, you can unmute, sir. Honorable Commissioner. I think I've seen him. Okay. Well, from okay, maybe we can go to Ondo State too, if the representatives are here. Because I know that I just saw Honorable Commissioner's meeting. Okay, while we are waiting, maybe Oyo, Ondo or Ikiti, anyone that's ready to speak now before we just go straight to the final round of our question. I just wanted to speak so that if there are other clarification of other questions from the panelists, they'll be able to answer. Anyway, okay. Well, thank you, everyone. While we are waiting for that, let me just go straight to on our the final thoughts from across the panelists. Why we are expecting interventions from all our states so that they can also give. So let me go back to the Honorable Commissioner, Professor Adeleke from Osun State. Please, your final thoughts, and as we move on this conversation. Your final thoughts, sir.
Thank you very much once again. I think there are templates that have been put in place to ensure that states comply and states perform. Just like Mr. Onibide just mentioned, although it's not every state that is doing it, budget implementation is not something that is kept in the drawers. You make it public. If you truly are accountable, you are truly transparent. And that is what we do in the state. You know, we make public on the state website the implementation of the state on quarterly basis. And I'm happy to report that, of course, everybody is aware of that. Just of recent, when the budget report of third quarter performance of state by state in the year 2025 was released, Osun State happened to be one of the best in the states. You know, having 100%. I can see Mr. Onibide nodding that's truly correct. That's to tell you that we try as much as possible to be accountable, to be transparent, and to be inclusive in the state. For you to know, the budget of the state is done, you know, including every citizen, you know, of course, the representative, all along, you know, to ensure that what is done by the government is what is supported by the people of the state. So the point I'm trying to make is that states should wake up. And I like the analogy of Mr. Onibide that the key that we are holding as a government, the space we are occupying as a government is owned by the people, which can be withdrawn at any point in time. So if this is recognized, you know, government at the subnational level, of course, everywhere should recognize that you are only holding that position in trust for the people that you are governing. So I would just want to round off by saying that as governments at the subnational level, we should be mindful of the impact we are creating on our people while in government. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, Honorable Commissioner. And I know that your final words, we should be mindful of those impacts we create because they will last even after the office. So thank you so much. Of course, it still we have a lot of Q&A session and other people that will speak very soon. So please stay hold on so that we can entertain other questions. So I want to go to Prof. now, Professor Folawiwo. Please, your final thoughts as we round off this session. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you again. I think the states in the Southwest, they are extremely they are doing good, because I've been following budget report on state of state. If you look at the positions of the Southwest states, they are not performing bad over time. But all I will advise is that they should be more focused. That as a regional economy, what is our drive? What do we want? What do we want to achieve? Do you want to achieve an agro-halide-led economic development? Are we driving toward industrial economy or region? So once we have focus, then we should be able to have targeted budget that be able to support our vision. Of course, I'm aware that all of them, they have their development plan, their medium-term expenditure framework that they are basing their budget on. And of course, just as to key into what Mr. I'm trying to recollect the name, Onibide said about our budget being based on plan and the rest. I know a body, UNICEF, has started supporting budgeting process across states. That's let our budget be program-driven, program-based budgeting. So once we have our different plans, we have our long-term development plan, we have our medium-term expenditure framework, then we key our annual budget into it. But the most important thing is our budget must be based on certain vision. What is the vision? What's our driving goal for as a state and as a region? And then be able to get there. We see our productivity going up, and we see that the budget will not be annual issue. It will not be a statement without reflecting on the welfare of citizens. We see that everything will fall in line. So that's what will be my final take. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. And let me go straight to Mr. Onibide for your final thoughts. Thank you. Please unmute your mic.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and thanks so much for the speakers. I also have learned a lot. My final word is just that we have the Southwest Development Commission now, and if I'm right, the agenda is that we see integrated development and integrated agenda for the Southwest. It also means that state governors should take advantage of this opportunity to be able to drive increased integration. I've heard a few people speaking about transport, like rail transport within the region, and so that we're able to connect much more, move goods, move people around. That's something to be able to deliver in there like a medium term. Other things I also want is like this region to set like a bit of level of standardization. If there's anything the Southwest had would say we had as legacy was education. I mean, the free education of the action group became like what everybody copied across every region, the north, the east. Unfortunately, I don't look at numbers within the region, and I don't see us being at the front foot of that. It means also within the region there must be a mutual understanding about what should be the standard of education, what should be the standard of health. And I guess that's one of the things, what should be the quality of living. That's one, because if we like it or not, this region, the Southwest region, is still the most developed, most sophisticated region of the country. Every socioeconomic indicator in this country, the Southwest will always lead, because this is where the market is, this is where the most of, but we also cannot erode those advantages. The only way we can protect them is let's create like a standard structure of like, this is what the social sector program of the region should look like: education, health, social protection. The other part is also the issue of the integration. Now, my last point is also security. fact, sure, and I know I've not seen us talking few about it, and I know Mr. Faraibi spoke about it. And in terms of the social security, the security of this region with the Amotekons, it's also time to scale up investment in that direction. And also because this is region that for years clamored for, community policing, state federalism. This is the chance to also use our clout, at the federal level to deliver those things, especially when it comes to state policing, and these are Motek giving them a power, because as a region, we have things knocking in Kwara already. We have them in Kogi already. Edo is in a mess with kidnapping already. The social capital that we are benefiting from significantly from the Southwest, part of that is also because we have a fairly secure environment. We need to deliberately protect that. With a lot of community intelligence, we love investment in security items. So I guess if the Southwest puts all of this in order, it will be helpful. I also feel like there are some things that the region can do, because I believe that the problem with democracy most times is that it's like someone that is dieting and is always mounting the scale every 30 minutes, checking if my weight is reducing. Then you check another 30 minutes if my the weight will not reduce in every 30 minutes because you just use treadmill. Because of this 4-year cycle, there's a very tendency that our thinking, our orientation is wrapped in these short-term market mechanisms. But one of the things the Southwest Commission and Dawn Commission can do for us is to be able to incubate things in the medium to the long term. What should living residencies spaces look like in the Southwest? What should agriculture look like? What should mining look like? And all of these advantages, how do we optimize them? And I guess once we're able to do that, I'm sure we as region will continue to be at the forefront of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sheung. Thank you so much. There are two interventions that I have said about SWDC and Dawn Commission. They also talk about long-term planning. So I want to talk, kindly, DG, sir, please,
Okay.
I want you to talk about this SWDC, then what Dawn has been doing again. Then thereafter, we'll call on Mr. Abiodun Oladipo to also talk about the plan for the Southwest Development Plan. DG, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Soji. And Sheung, good morning. Well, it's a bit Wagan anyway. But anyway, good whatever. So, so that's a good afternoon. I can assure you. At least I know that one. So anyway, I'm glad you mentioned certain critical things. You mentioned security. You mentioned transport. And there's something else that we are hoping to get involved in this year, both as Dawn and hopefully with our collaborations and partnership with SWDC. And that is ramping up the skills of the workforce in Southwest. We are seeing a lot of companies coming in, FDI, whatever you call it, bringing in their companies into the Southwest. And increasingly, part of the challenges some of these companies are facing is what we call manpower shortage. They don't even have the numbers. And what we realize is that a lot of our young ones who are out there, they are not employable. It's as simple as that. So you have industries being set up, but the workforce is not readily available. So it's part of the things that we hope to get involved in this year to see how we can get our young workforce ready for the industry, for the 21st century. Moreover, on the transport side, the good thing is that even SWDC, and SWDC they are a federal government agency to start with primarily. We are regional. We are owned by the 6 Southwest states. Now, their primary purpose is basically to implement regional projects. Thankfully, it's clear that they're not going to be focusing on doing boreholes or roofing classrooms. They are going to focus on game-changing things like rail. Rail is a critical part of transportation in the region. If we want to fast-track development, we must focus on moving people and goods easily from point A to point B. Nigeria's population is projected to nearly double, if not double, in about 20 years' time. And it is clear that a lot of that population will live in Southwest. So everybody is not going to live in Ibadan or Lagos. We now need to prepare for people to live in Ede, for people to live in Efunalaye, and be able to commute to go and work. Because if we don't do that, we'll get to hopefully we won't get to an Hong Kong situation where people are living on top of each other, if you've ever been to Hong Kong. So doing that means that we need to focus our energy, particularly SWDC and DAWN, in focusing on rail. We have done all the technical work. We have done all the paperwork. We are hoping that as soon as SWDC hits the ground running shortly, and I'm glad that they too have been meeting with Nigerian Railway Corporation and stuff and other key stakeholders on how we can even start from the low hangings, which is resuscitating the moribund lines, which NRC has told us. There are loads of them in Southwest, lines that are not in use. We can start with that. So we know the importance of rail in enhancing our economic development in this region. Just this morning, I was talking to my colleague that even going forward, states like Osun will have to work closely with Ondo. And why did I mention Ondo? Because in the next few years, the economy of Ondo will change, whether we like it or not. The Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road is going to have a massive effect on a state like Ondo. So it is important for Osun to now key into the things that are going to be happening in Ondo State. We're talking of they're going to have the seaport. There's a private developer that wants to go into the refinery sector there. The tourism industry there will explode. So Osun in particular, which is next door to them, and of course Ekiti, but I just mentioned Osun now because of proximity, that they need to do more in preparing their own workforce as well. So this year, part of the things we'll be doing at Dawn Commission is to engage with states, with Osun and Ekiti, on how they can feed on what will be happening in Ondo State over the next few years. If we don't do it, others will take advantage. Don't forget that the road connects the likes of Delta, Edo. So if they prepare for it, they will gain more than us here in Southwest. We don't have a right to gain from what will happen in Ondo if we don't prepare for it. So those are the things that going forward, we hope to implement and work with our states to make sure it happens this year. Of course, security, our governors have agreed to set up a security trust fund, which is good news. That should take off in February once the governors meet. I think they'll be meeting sometime in February. The security trust fund will be the ones that will provide the funds to buy more stuff in order to ramp up Amotekun. And hopefully before this year runs out, we will have gotten somewhere as well with state police. So quite a lot of things are in the pipeline, and we are excited with our partnership with SWDC, which is, and I'm glad that the leadership of SWDC, they are led by people who are development focused, which is very important. Thank you, Soji.
Thank you, Sir DG, for that insight on the Dawn's inroads for the year and the partnership with SWDC. So, and I have Mr. Abiodun Oladipo, please, the head of programs, please. You can go ahead now.
Good afternoon once again, everyone, and thanks for joining the meeting. So I think what I want to talk about has already been said by a lot of people, maybe in different way anyway. Mr. Onibida was talking about the need to integrate the region, the state in the region. That's exactly what we're talking about. So sometimes just before 2023 elections, around 2021 or thereabout, we started the process of developing a 25-year master plan, the regional master plan for the region, leveraging what the state have done. But because of the elections and stuff, we put it in abeyance. But with the coming of SWDC and kind of conversation we had with them, not to atomize their projects, to look at regional projects that can have bigger impacts on the region. So they started asking for some ideas from us on the kind of idea they can invest in if they eventually release their budget to them. So we gave them some ideas, but we now thought of why not go back to what we started about 3 years ago. I mean the regional development plan. So that we can have something coherent to present at anybody, either investors or even the development partners or even SWDC itself. So that's why we want to go back and start the issue of the state development plan. So, but we are not going to reinvent the wheel like the cell. We are going to leverage the state development plans some states have now, because it's not, Dawn Commission does not implement, directly. We still rely on the state apparatus for implementation. So we're going to base the state development plan, the regional development plan, on the state plan, so that it will be easier to convince the state to look at towards a particular project when it doesn't make it to regional plan. So want to kindly crave the indulgence of our commissioners for economic planning and budget that in a few weeks or even days, we'll call for a meeting to start the process of crafting a regional development plan for Southwest region. So like I said earlier, that we are not going to reinvent the wheel. We are not going to start from the scratch. We are going to leverage whatever plan document that the state has, the state have for now. That's what we're going to harmonize to bring the state. So, but for us to be able to harmonize our thoughts and our views about this, the direction this should go, we'll call for a meeting in another 1 or 2 weeks. We'll kindly create the gains of the attendance of the honorable commissioners or any senior official of the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget that can speak to the objective of our meeting. Thank you so much. That's just about it. That we should have a document that speaks to regional development, that anybody, either investors or development partners or even SWDC, can also leverage in whatever they want to do in Southwest region. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Abiodun. That was well said, and it's really been part of our yearnings at the region to be able to have this document put together, so that just like the panelists said, Mr. Sheung and all the other panelists, can have a more of a long-term plan rather than just a short-term cycle. Before we go to Q&A, I don't know if the state representatives are ready to talk now. Any maybe our honorable commissioners from any of the states in no particular order, please, you can signify now. You can speak before we now go to the proper Q&A session. Please, either Ogun, Lagos, Ekiti, Ondo, Oyo. Please, you can go ahead now. You have the floor. Honorable commissioners or any state representative from any of the states. Okay, so while we are waiting, let me return to Damilola Albert to take to continue the program. Thank you everyone for listening. Appreciate it.
It has been a wonderful conversation, and it has been very thought-provoking. Thank you so much for contributing to this dialogue, and thank you for being part of the community who makes impact. So now we'll be going to the Q&A questions. Like I said earlier, we've made the opportunity available for you to ask whichever questions you would want. I've checked the chat box. There are no questions there. So please, if you would want to ask any questions, now is the time. And I would like to hand over to Omotola Ashufi to anchor this.
Okay, thank you very much, Dami. Thank you very much, distinguished panelists, for those insightful contributions. And now we're in the question and answer session, which is an opportunity for us to deepen our conversation and to clarify issues that has been raised during this discourse. So if we have questions to ask, you can kindly raise your hands or you drop them in the chat box. So our panelists, our distinguished panelists can give answers to them before we round up. Thank you. Mr. Shita Bay, please, if you're on this call, we would like to hear from you, sir.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Ondo State Ministry of Budget and Planning. Good afternoon, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon. My own question is, what is the relationship between Southwest Development Commission and Dawn Commission?
Dami, I think someone is speaking from Ondo, but he's unmuted. Please unmute your mic, sir.
Okay, so he's asking what is the difference between Southwest Development Commission and Dawn Commission?
I'm not sure that was the question he asked. What is the relationship?
I said the relationship.
Okay.
The relationship between the Southwest Development Commission and Dawn Commission.
I think I answered that whilst I was speaking earlier on that we have a collaboration. We are meant to work together, and we will be working together once they fully take off. I've answered that originally, so it's not a problem at all. We've met several times. There are already things that we are doing together. We are basically a think tank, and they are going to be project implementing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any other question from the audience? In the absence of none, I would like to. Okay, someone in the chat box is asking a question.
Okay, somebody just dropped a question in our chat box. The question goes to us. As the speakers all mentioned that the budget performance is central to improving state competitiveness, how should Southwest states design their budget, especially the capital expenditure, to ensure it delivers productivity and competitiveness gain? This is for our panelists to answer. Professor Abiodun Folawewo, can you help us with that, sir?
Is that question for me?
It's for any of the panelists, sir.
Okay. Well, I think the question is a general one, and it has already been answered in the course of the discourse. I know Mr. Onigmide emphasized on the fact that either you talk of capital expenditure or the current expenditure, the budget must be based on adequate planning, planning framework, and when the Honorable Commissioner from Osun State, Professor Moruf, also emphasized on the fact that the budget is usually based on a certain plan. So when budget is based on deliberate planning, then the implementation will be efficient, and of course, the budget will be able to deliver whatever is the aspiration of the budget. So in a nutshell, for budget to achieve its outcome, it must be based on adequate planning. And of course, as I said earlier, no budget is standing alone. Budget is usually anchored on the state-owned development plan and MTEF. So once it is situated within that two framework, then the budget execution will not be a problem, and then it will be safe to achieve. That's a take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Prof. Just before we go, I want to put this question directly to Shehu Onigbede, being an impartial observer. This is an election year. This is an election year, 2026. What's your gut feeling? What do you think? How should our states ready themselves for I don't want to use the shocks, but maybe the stress that this might put on projections? And I'm being mild with my words because, we've been in this game for a long time to know that plans are nice and they can be grandiose, but election years can be very funny, even on foreign exchange as an example. So what's your gut feeling? What do you think might happen in this 2026, which is an election year? We shouldn't hide because the election is in February. So everything that happened will happen this year.
Yeah. I would thank so much. I would say maybe four things. The first thing that's shifted, I think, is the scale of resources with states because of the devaluation of the currency and because of the removal of fuel subsidy. And I think those fundamentals would not shift because obviously, one thing I've seen with the states, and Southwest is not immune from this, is that, and I always say that maybe the labor had a weak bargain for the minimum wage because the scale at which resources had grown is not the same way personnel costs for the government has grown at the same pace. So which means more money to do maybe capital projects, more money to spend on overheads and all of that. So I suspect and I see that states will still have the scale of resources that they have. And that's why you see most states now, they want to do airlines, some of them want to do airports, everybody's trying to do something very, very grandiose. So states having much more resources, to go into the election process. Now, the efficiency of those resources will now be a different thing. If those resources have been proposed for development or they follow, political expediency and election work. The second thing also, as you're right, is the uncertainty around the exchange rate. There will certainly be some pressure from the federal government to course correct certain things just to, in some sort of way to be politically correct. And I hope they're able to manage those pressures because obviously in an election year, you don't want your inflation to be tending northwards. You don't want your currency to become really devalued. In an election year, even if fuel prices are rising and let's assume that global oil prices reaches $90 per barrel today, which means that fuel prices get into 1,300, 1,400 corridor. At that point, you might be able to ask questions that do we now start varying certain things just to be politically correct? So, that holding power, this is the test actually. Whatever we are doing previously, but this year will test some of those assumptions. They might be lucky that oil prices remain the same. They might be lucky that they're able to unlock certain investments to keep going. You never know what Donald Trump will do, and that will have influence that will have on our bond and our capital market, and maybe FPIs run out of the country. So in some sort of way, a lot of uncertainties are there, and it's how the fiscal and monetary authorities at the federal state appear and how they're able to have the fortitude to hold on. Maybe we'll also see how states will change. The third thing is also to be able to look fact that might disagree or not agree. The president is from Southwest, obviously. And if the political economy is showing that there's a lot of pressure to prove that the president is the president's base must support him. We don't know what the outcome will be. The citizens will decide that. And also, which means that you will see certain investments coming in quite, maybe ramping up much more in the South in terms of federal spending, in terms of federal presence. So it's something being able to watch out for. And you could see how there's been scale up of presence of federal institutions. I mean, universities are popping up in Iyekichi, in Iragbiji, in Okeo, places that never got those kind of intervention, because most intervention are always in the big cities, and we know that there's also a political discussion behind those things. So we also see a bit of ramp up of federal institutions. These development commissions have not been well funded. I mean, maybe they might not be able to say it. I might be able to say it, but hopefully, this is the year that they get the sprints. They're able to move faster, and that's also part of federal government ramping up its presence in state, because you will see a lot of direct spending at the federal level of state to be able to course correct some of these shocks and pressures that the first subsidy has brought forward. My last point is, the temperature will be higher. Obviously, we know how keenly elections are very, very contested, especially federal level, and also even at the state level. Out of the 6 states in the Southwest, we have Osun elections coming on board. Obviously, Oyo, Lagos, maybe Lagos is not, then Lagos Ekiti elections are also coming. Maybe it might not be as competitive as there, but Ogun, Oyo will be the 2 places to really look into. Maybe a little bit about Lagos. So this competition in those elections will also throw in that state governments become a little bit more responsive. And, as we can see, there's some laughing already happening in Oyo recently. So we'll see how that goes at the end of the day. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well noted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shewonibide. That was a very good one from you. Thank you, sir. And the last but not the least question for this discourse today, we'll be taking it from our chat box. The question is directed to the Honorable Commissioner. The question goes thus: are there plans in place to equip the unemployed youths with the skills to make them employable? And how soon will this plan be implemented? And what are the appropriate channels to access it? Thank you, sir.
I mean, Biodun Oladipo can answer that.
Yes, I think.
Commissioners, are you there?
Okay. Is Honorable
Okay,
speaking? Okay, let me just do my bit, and Honorable can add to it. I think if you look, I don't know the person assigning the question. I don't know where the person is calling from or he resides, but the technical schools are all over now. They may not be as glamorous as what we are used to with the university, but there are technical schools in Lagos, in Osun. I'm very sure of Osun. I'm very sure of Lagos. I think also in Oyo. So those are the places you can get these skills. We need to understand where the economy is, where Nigerian economy is, and the opportunity in the blue collar job market, and the skill that is needed to do all these jobs. We were tired of hearing about bringing in people from Togo or from other African countries to come and do some artisan work in Nigeria. So, and I'm very sure about 3 or 4 states have invested, even Ekiti State, with the support of World Bank, they have a technical school that is well equipped. So I think I would just advise that people look towards that, ability to be able to learn vocational skills, that is in demand. So recently, we brought in some furniture in our house, and we're saying that we should be able to have people that can do this kind of furniture in Nigeria, that will be so this nice. And I'm very sure that technical colleges can bring all those kind of things. So if you look inward, and not all these 2-3 days, crash courses, but if you really want acquire skills that is relevant for this present economy. Did you mention earlier about what is happening around the Ondo Lagos axis now, the coastal road? the kind of industry that will be springing up in those areas. They will probably need more technical hands, to be able to function around there. So if we are looking at how we can make our youth employable, I think I would suggest that we look inwards towards our technical colleges, where the hand-on skills are learned and are ready deployed to the sector that are in need of those skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And now I would like to call on Damilola to take us further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Biodo. I would like to hand over to Bumi Ajileye to take us through the next steps as we've launched the Southwest Economic Outlook. I would like to call Bumi to give us next steps. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your contributions so far. They were really noted, and a few steps has been recorded as our next line of action in even if you cannot implement it in the already made budget, it can help to guide the next year budget that we are anticipating. Thank you so much again for your contribution. So the very first one that caught my attention during the course of the discourse was that budget size is not equal to impact, and that was very germane for me, because when we hear the size of a budget, something billion, something trillion, we're like, wow, a lot will be done. But at the end of the year, we start to look back and we recount, we measure with some metrics and realize that, okay, did the budget really factor, or was it just numbers? Okay, so from there we'll move to impact of the budget. That citizen welfare should be a focus or outcome, not just budget optics. So we should not just outline the budget, but we should have at the back of our mind the outcome of that budget. What do we want to gain from this budget? What are our expectations from the budget? What outcomes are we expecting? And the major one there should be citizen welfare. So budget as statement of intent, but competitiveness depends on budget performance, not budget size alone. Competitiveness is constrained less by fiscal size and more by misaligned infrastructure priorities and weak execution. So I think we can all agree with me that execution, not only in budget now, in whatever plan, not only budget plan, execution is a very major part of anything that you plan out. So execution, a weak execution, we have impact on the outcome of that budget plan. So from there, we also mentioned during the course of the discourse that collaborative financing models should be developed to deliver infrastructure and human capital investment. And if a lot of weaknesses were mentioned, but I pointed out during the course of the discourse. Number one, the weakness of the current model include short-termism driven by electoral incentives. So, and number two, weak monitoring, evaluation, and learning frameworks, among others, which lead to lack of outcome clarity. So, example is school built without literacy targets. When we build schools, what are our targets? Are we to produce 1,000 students of a proven skill, or are we focusing on a particular course that, okay, by the time this set of students or set of cohorts finish, we can boast that, okay, this is what learned, and this is what they are going to deliver to the citizen or to the community at the end of their learning, not just creating schools and filling it up with chairs, buildings, fancy buildings, and colors. What impact will the students that are graduating from that school have on the society at large? Another one is hospitals built without health outcome metrics. Yes, we have a lot of health facilities, healthcare, health centers that they are fancy, they are beautiful, but we know our experiences when we visit those clinics. So what metrics are you using to measure the impact and the outcome of that hospital or the healthcare facility that was built? So that those are examples of measuring metrics for infrastructure. So another one is outcome-based. Okay, that's the first one, outcome-based evaluation. Second one is medium long-term planning. Yeah, somebody asked a question about it earlier, and a very good answer was given by one of our participants, one of our panelists rather, that adequate planning is very important. That is, anchor annual budget on long-term development plan. Budget cannot outperform the economic structure of the state. So budget should not just be planned based on by randomly picking infrastructure, or I know that is not how our budget was planned, but that's part of the things that were mentioned, that it should be on a state economic plan, and it should be done annually. So that can help to measure the impact and then evaluation, and then kind of be a framework to our budget. So another one is that another step there is IGR optimization. So states must intentionally build engines of growth, as IGR is the strongest buffer against global and national shocks. Yeah, 2024 was a very big one for us, especially in Nigeria with inflation. The shock was too much on everybody that a lot was recorded, especially when it comes to the aspect of food inflation. It was a big issue in 2024. It was a big shock to the economy in the national level and the global level at large. So this is why IGR optimization is a very big step in the budget planning and implementation. So the last one is we need budget clarity, infrastructure and sectoral allocation of budget. Budget should be allocated sectorally for easy measurement of impact. For us to be able to measure the impact of a budget, recurrent and capital expenditure alone is not enough. For accountability purpose, we need, how do we want to spend this money for the sake of accountability and measurement of impact. Thank you so much for the engagement so far. We truly appreciate your honoring our invitation. So to our distinguished guests, our panelists, the Honorable Commissioner, and on behalf of Dawn Commission, we would like to extend our sincere appreciation to our speakers and participants for the rich, honest, and forward-looking discourse. Your insights on budgeting, competitiveness, transparency, and service delivery has deepened our collective understanding of the region's economic challenges and opportunities. We are particularly grateful for our honorable commissioners and experts for sharing practical experiences that move the conversation beyond theory to action. We also appreciate the commitment of the state representative, whose engagement was supposed to reinforce the importance of regional collaboration. And finally, we thank all participants for your time and contribution. Today's dialogue strengthening our resolve to translate ideas into measurable outcomes for Southwest region. Thank you all, and we look forward to your continual collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for making a contribution to this dialogue. Thank you so much for coming. We hope to have you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sirs. We appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Auntie.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.